Welcome to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Every Wednesday, Mark and Kim, along with their special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Mark and Kim will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience, and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Mark and Kim are tested, certified, and professional spiritual mediums, metaphysical teachers, healers, and spiritual advisors with their own individual spiritual practices in Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles, California. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And happy first Wednesday of December, and good afternoon, inspired listeners. I'm Kim Falcon, founder of Love First, where life transformations happen in Encino, California, welcoming you to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Of course, with me today is my partner in crime and co-host, Mark Lanehart, the intuitive prospector in Seattle, Washington. Mark, how is the prospecting going up there today?
Well, it was a little tough going, but we were able to prospect just fine and get everybody connected. We have our very special guest on the line. Like Kim said, I am Mark Lanehart, the intuitive prospector. If you'd like to know more about my practice or spiritual hikes and workshops, or just do a little spiritual prospecting for your own spiritual goal, you can look me up at marklanehart.com or just internet search the intuitive prospector up here in Seattle, Washington. So we are good. 10 minutes into the show, we've got everybody connected, and I am ready to get into the show.
Okay, awesome. So with that said, let's just bring our wonderful guest on today. I'm telling you, we've got a big treat ahead of us here in the next hour for all of our listeners in our inspired community, and that is with Laura Day. So Laura Day is, she's a New York Times bestselling author. She has spent nearly 3 decades helping individuals, organizations, and companies use their innate intuitive abilities to create profound change. Newsweek Magazine calls her the $10,000 a month psychic. Wow. The Independent dubbed her the psychic of Wall Street. And A-list Hollywood stars and Wall Street executives all praise her for her abilities to hone in on future predictions, which is what she is known for, one of her greatest strengths, with astounding accuracy, including the recession. All right, so Laura has helped demystify intuition. She brings it into the mainstream. She uses it in the fields of business, science, medicine, and personal growth. She has trained thousands of people to use their brains, perceptions, and sixth sense in effective ways to realize their goals. So we're going to be talking about intuition today, about healing, about realizing your goals. And Laura Day is also the author of 6 best-selling books, including Practical Intuition in Love. Well, that's a good one. Practical Intuition in Success, The Circle, Welcome to Your Crisis, and her most recent book, How to Rule the World from Your Couch, which was released in paperback not that long ago. And she has been featured in so many publications that we all know: Newsweek, New York Magazine, Cosmopolitan, Marie Claire, and People Magazine, just to name a few. She's been all over the media. She speaks both regularly here, domestically, and also abroad. She's been on shows like CNN, Fox News, Good Morning America, The View Extra, and The Oprah Winfrey Show. She can be found at practicalintuition.com. And finally, what we've all been waiting for, welcome, Laura Day, to Inspired Living. We are so happy to have you spend this time with us.
Welcome, Laura.
What an incredible intro. Thank you.
Well, you have quite the incredible background. I mean, you know, there's when we posted out there that you're going to be joining us today, we got so much feedback from our community on how you've inspired them. So we've been just thrilled to have you.
That makes me feel so good.
Yes,
Because
in fact.
Really, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
You know, my work, I mean, the work that gets written up and in magazines and on TV is all my work with businesses and celebrities. But the work that's really important to me and where I think that intuition and healing are invaluable are in communities, are really for people who are struggling, which defines most of us at least half of the time, right? Because it's something that's innate and it's easy to access and it's easy to use in community. So that makes me feel so good that readers are interested in using this tool.
Well, we like to sometimes acknowledge some of our listeners and give a shout out. And today I want to do that to Diana Blagden, who's actually a colleague of ours, because she said she was so excited you're going to be on the show, that you were a big part in inspiring her to do the work that she does in her own spiritual practice. So, Diana, if you're listening, thank you for being a part of the show today.
Part of what I've been doing the last year is going around the country and really introducing new intuitives and new healers to their own communities. So doing a laying on of hands, a group of, where people come and the healers in their community, myself included, do a laying on of hands, give a little bit of intuitive information for the group, raise money for local charities, because we really are, especially as intuitives, we're an internet-connected world community, and we should use that incredible power.
And hold that thought, Laura. We're going to be heading into break. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on OMTimes Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Laura.
Okay.
And welcome back, inspired listeners, to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim, and our special guest today, Laura Day, author, speaker, teacher, intuitionist, and healer extraordinaire. Before we went on break, Laura, you were talking about the need for community and that we all need support. Now, in an article that I read recently, that featured you in it, you had talked about your path. And You come from a very interesting background that got you to where you are today. And you said that great intuition starts with a wound. And that does seem to be a common theme among people who are in service to others, be it a healer, professional, intuitionist, psychic mediums, etc. I mean, I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit more about, how and when your abilities developed at a very young age.
Well, I think that some of my experience is the brain is there actually to limit perceptions, so that people who have early traumas lose that ability to limit their perceptions. So they perhaps don't function as well in their daily lives, like they can't find the same colored socks, but they have a window to the universe in a way that people who have not sustained those kinds of early traumas don't. And for me, the trauma was both a series of head injuries and my mother was a manic depressive and would attempt suicide. So I very early on got the ability to predict when she would attempt suicide. Doesn't make, I'm very grateful for 40 years of psychotherapy to help me, reconstitute as a human being. But what it did leave me with is a very good precognitive gift. Now, I don't think you need early trauma to be a good intuitive. And I have many students who come to train who really have had really solid lives and are solid people in a way that trauma doesn't allow you to be, who do open up their intuition. Because as children, we really need to repress that ability to experience and see everywhere, or we'd be crazy by the time we were adults. I mean, you really, as children, need to channel that intuition into creativity. But intuition is something that's a part of all of us. And one of the things I love about doing these little free mini workshops around the country is in an hour I can get anybody to be able to really gather good, accurate, intuitive information for another person. And I think that what's so important about that, and my real soapbox right now, is that we're living in an era of experts. I mean, I have a doctor for every organ in my body. We're living in an era where we pay other people, but we ignore the fact that the person sitting next to us on the bus can very easily have our answers, can very easily channel the healing that we need to get to our next happy place. And I think that we ignore the resources in our community in favor of experts, which many people, most of the American population, can't afford.
Sure. You just raised so many. I've got so many questions to go off of what you just said. You touched on so many different things, but right, and also the resources within us that come with our intuition, which you're so well known for helping people tap into. But what is the difference between intuition and psychic abilities, or is there a difference?
There's really no difference. I mean, I'm from generations of doctors, and so as a young person, I couldn't use the word psychic and have my family still sit down to dinner with me. But also, the word psychic, when I began, which is a long time ago, we're talking about the late 70s, the word psychic carried with it a lot of beliefs. Intuition is a tool. It's an innate human ability to move attention in space and time. And it doesn't require belief. You can be a meat eater, you can be a hateful, jealous person, you can be spiritually not at all evolved and still be a good intuitive. In fact, sociopaths and successful criminals are fabulous intuitives. So intuition has nothing to do with kind of an integrity or a spirituality. And I think confusing those things really, first of all, makes people hold themselves to these ridiculous standards. If I have a drink, will I still be intuitive? If I think an evil thought, will I still be intuitive? There's a book called Life After Life by, I believe, Raymond Moody. When you're dead, when people are resuscitated, in the time they were dead, they had intuitive experiences. They described what was happening at a remote location. You cannot get rid of your intuition. The problem is that intuition, when you complicate it with all of these beliefs and practices, really doesn't become useful. I mean, life is so challenging and life is so busy, even the most privileged life, that you really need to be able to use the skills of sight, of telepathy, of healing, of directing energy as you're living your daily life. If you have to sit on a mountaintop to do it, it's not useful to you. So I like the word practical intuitive, because that's really what I'm training people to do. I'm not training people to ascend to a higher level of consciousness. I think we're already at a high level of consciousness. The real question is, how do we want to use our consciousness to improve our lives, our communities, and the lives of people around us? And so the word psychic, I'm a little allergic to, just because it means a lot of things that complicate what is a very simple innate skill.
I absolutely love what you just said, because I do think that, even the people that do this work professionally get wrapped up in beliefs and having to live a certain lifestyle and all of these things that you had just mentioned. But yet, when you talk about intuition, it's something that we all have. You don't have to believe a certain way. You don't have to have a certain diet. It's just using what's already there. I love what you just said. That really resonated.
And also, it's an important, I think that for the consumer of psychics or intuitives or healers, it's really important to know that somebody can be very accurate and predict accurately for you and even be very healing and be struggling with their own struggles, maybe not even be always such a good or nice person. It's really important. One of the things that I love about intuition is everybody can do it. Same thing with healing. I am not above literally being in a park having a headache and picking up a conversation with a stranger and saying, hey, this is what I do. Do you want to try it? Because I have a headache. So could you take a deep breath and put your hands around my head, and this is what I'd like you to do? Anybody can do this. And it's so important for people to go back to feeling empowered themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to do a good reading for oneself. It's very easy to do a good reading for somebody else, because you know what you're hoping for, what you're fearing. You kind of, maneuver away from your weak spots, whereas someone else doesn't do that. That perspective is so helpful. But the reality that every single human being on this planet is born with a dynamically useful skill that they can use for others and in their communities is so important. I see people coming to my healing circles, and they're, it's very nice, all the love that's showered on me, but the fact of the matter is the healing circle works because every single person in it is contributing their powerful and valuable energy. I always say I'm the honey in the bear. People show up because I'm there, but actually everybody in that room can do an amazing healing. And so it's really important, I think, for the individual to go back to feeling empowered in themselves and really knowing that even if they're down and out, even if they don't have a job at the moment or in a shelter or dealing with, psychological issues or financial issues, they have a valuable gift to share with their community. And I think we really need to get back to not valuing the expert, but valuing one another, which is why every book I write is literally a training. You can do my books and hang your sign out and be a professional intuitive and a professional healer and do it
I love it.
Beautifully.
Right, because people don't think of themselves in that way. So I love that you talk about empowering the individual, helping them to remember what it is, it is that they already have within themselves. And you said something earlier, which I think is really important, because I think people might think of, well, it's going to take many years of training in order to develop this. But you say that you can help somebody do it in an hour.
Well, every single person is being intuitive all the time. The problem is that your intuition gets mixed up with other thought processes and feeling processes, and it's really a very simple switch, just like you're feeling all the time, but you're not always aware you're feeling, or you're thinking all the time, but you're not always, sometimes your feelings overwhelm your thinking. Well, intuition kind of gets pushed down to the bottom of the totem pole, and all you have to do, and it really just takes a moment, is to bring somebody to an awareness of where their intuition lies. And it's very helpful when you're doing it for someone else, because, of course, when you're intuitive about yourself, you could say, oh, well, I knew that already, and, well, but I know myself. Well, I could have figured that out. But when you give a stranger a piece of verifiable, accurate information, there's really no excuse there. That's just intuition.
That's right. We had a question come in about where does intuition come from? Is it does it come from our guides and angels? Do you work with guides and angels? Where does that come from?
I'm going to give the shortest explanation as I experience it. My experience is that we are really all one energy, and every science from astronomy to mathematics is verifying that premise, that we are all one interconnected energy, so that in a sense our individuality, the I, the ego, is the illusion. The reality is we're just one united energy, and we call that spirit. And so my personal experience is that really in being human beings, not in trying to be more spiritual, but in being human beings, we're actually evolving that one energy. But one of the qualities of that energy, I'm going to have to finish this after the break.
That's right. We're going right into break, Laura. So if you could finish when we come back, that would be wonderful. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
If you've ever said, I do want it all. I do want happiness. I do want love. And I do desire the happily ever after fairy tale life, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, for my internationally acclaimed show, Bridal Talk Radio, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, where I'll bring you the top experts in the fields of communication, money, relationships, finance, pleasure, play, travel, sexuality, parenting, real estate, adventure, comfort, care, passion, and love.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting to your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and help you realize the innate potential you have to heal every aspect of your life. So come heal yourself every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with your host, Monica Goyal. Namaste.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim here on OMTimes Radio, the voice of consciousness. Today we have best-selling author, teacher, healer, Laura Day joining us live right now for the show from New York. If you want to interact with the show, head on over to our Facebook page, Inspired Living Radio. You can post a question there, and if we have time, we will try to bring it to air if you wanted to ask Laura a certain question. So, Laura, before we went to break, we wanted you to finish up the thought that you were talking about.
I haven't mastered the short answer, but the question was, where does intuition come from? And the short answer is, we are all one energy. And time is an illusion. The present is the only time. The past and future can be both predicted and changed, but in the present. So because we're one energy, with very simple techniques, we're able to get access to the energy of another human being, the energy of an event in the future, the energy of how a disease is progressing and how to stop it, because we are really everything. And the more that people can really experience that concept, not just intellectually, but as a working principle, the more we can affect change in our own lives. And that really is what's important, because I really don't believe in bad energy and good energy. I think energy is just energy, but it's each individual's job to create good energy, in the sense of to direct the energy that has no quality to creating good things, because we are one. We are one with each other. Every person who goes hungry affects us. Every homeless child affects us. And we really need to put our own oxygen mask on first. So to really address what's not working in our own lives first. It's really important. Ego's gotten a very bad name. Ego's an important thing to have. It's really important for you, all of us, each individual, to be okay. And it's your job for you to be okay first. So that oneness of energy is available to you. And I think in a sense we learn as we get older not to use it. We're schooled not to use that oneness as opposed to using that oneness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's I agree with everything you said. As far as energy,
I like that about you.
Well, it's funny because before the show, when I was doing my research on you, Laura, I have to be honest, I didn't know a lot of your work. I've been doing the spiritual journey for myself about 5 years now, and since 2010, and everything that you're saying, the word psychic, when I had my spiritual practice, when I was naming it, I didn't want to use the word psychic, so I used the word intuitive, the intuitive prospector. So 30 years later, you said back in the 70s when you were, starting out, the word psychic even then carried just some very, disillusioned concepts of what this work is about. And I agree with you that it's all about community, it's all about healing, and even the studies that they're starting to do from a worldwide standpoint of trying to better our planet, of people coming together in mass groups of meditation and working together to try to heal each other and our planet, seems to be a big focus as of today. So the word intuitive I love, and again, what we make of the energy, no good, bad, happy, or sad, just being present to the moment and what we make of it right now in the present. So I love that.
The question that I ask myself, and believe me, I do not always reach my own standards. I disappoint myself day after day, as we all do,
Sure.
I mean, there is definitely the inner bitch, I mean, there's the inner envious person. We all struggle with our shadow, and that makes us powerful. You can't make gray out of black and white. You really need to be able to experience the polarity. But my working principle is, whenever I'm in an interaction or situation or walking down the street, where can I give my blessing? Can I give my blessing by donating to this cause? Can I give my blessing by taking a moment to just send energy to someone who looks sad on the street? But where can I give my blessing? And where do I need my blessings? Because we really are responsible first and foremost for our own survival and our own thriving. Martyrs are psychologically unhealthy people. I know that, the world loves a martyr, but really the person who can create their own life and then share from a position of abundance, I think, is doing the spiritual work.
And I like you when I was doing my research on you. One of the things that really stuck out with me, you talked about in a previous interview. You said one good working definition of intelligence is the capacity to know what to do when you don't know what to do.
Right.
I love that.
Yes, I'm surprised because usually, like all writers, I think with my fingers. So my best things are never in voice, except for reading. It's so funny. People always say to me in the most casual situations, like at a dinner party, "Oh, can you look at this for me?" And I think to myself, "Gee, I wish I had an intellect. I'm all intuition. I'm always looking." And I think that people. One of the things I love about this new century is when I started in the 70s, people didn't say, "Oh, he's an intuitive businessman," or "That's an intuitive program," or "That's an intuitive strategy," or "an intuitive computer." It's become part of our lexicon. But the thing about intuition is, not to get overly political here, intuition empowers the individual. Intuition really does say each person is powerful, each person knows everything, each person has access to all energy. And one of the ways, I wanted to get this in, so I'm going to kind of jump around as my husband always accuses me of doing.
You bet.
One of the periods of time that is the most intuitive because our senses are at rest is during sleep. And I'd love to give your listeners a really easy exercise, if I may, to be able to focus their intuition on a target, on healing, which is before you go to sleep, take a moment to just experience yourself as one with all energy, past, present, and future. And as you do, experience your life the way you want it to be. Don't worry if doubts come up. Don't worry if and this is all in the circle, which is the practice I do. But don't worry about all those things that come up, the anxieties, the doubts. Let them come up. They're not your enemies. But really experience what you want. And before you go to sleep, write down your intention for that night. So tonight, I'm going to work out this disagreement that I'm having with this person, or tonight I'm going to get in touch with the world around me to be able to get a job that serves me while serving others. Really write down a goal. And I say write it down because the mind is a messy place, so just thinking it isn't enough. And then when you wake up in the morning, forget listening to your dreams. Dreams are such a mishmash of intuition and processing your day and your subconscious and your history and blah, blah, blah. Write down just where your attention is. How do you feel? Who are you thinking about? What are you wanting? And do that for a couple days. And what you'll notice is that you end up with a sleep community who's working for you. And you'll begin to run into people who you don't know, but who you recognize, who are part of that sleep community. So it's really what the circle is about, is working with the world around you. And sleep is a wonderful time to do that, because most of us are lucky enough to have a safe place to sleep. So all of your abilities, your telepathy, your intuition, your astral projection, all of that is free to really work on a specific goal.
That is great, and thank you for sharing that. That's I've always been fascinated with sleep. The sleep studies that they've done, the analytical mind. In my background is, the mind is more active asleep than when it's awake, and I've always just been fascinated with that concept because we're not doing anything. So, thank you for sharing that with the inspired listeners. One of the things I wanted to talk about as well, Kim had started the show off. We were talking about the wounds and about you had said. I don't know if this was in a book or a past interview about, the great healers and the seers of the world that usually have great spiritual, gifts and abilities and powers. You said came by those through deep wounds. And I just wanted you to talk about that because there might be a listener out there that's gone through some, pretty traumatic, things in life and, might be more, I almost look at it like a catalyst of we're all intuitive. I totally agree with that. But sometimes the tragedies, it did for me anyway. It was like a spiritual power drink that really opened me up to my gifts and abilities. And just wanted you to talk a little bit about that with the inspired listeners, if you could.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is all saints were sinners first. And when our life dramatically, when our life is in dissonance in some way, which often is through a crisis, what happens is we source both inside ourselves and in the outer world to find kind of the miraculous tools, because what crisis does is we don't have time to do things the slow, easy way. We need to find those miracles. We need to find those tools. And so when you're injured, when you lose somebody you love, when you lose something you love, what happens is you have a question that needs answering. How do I fix this? And you're driven to fix it. And in doing that, intuition reaches far past what your ego would have allowed it to do in the past to find those solutions. Now, childhood is a whole different thing. What happens is the ego doesn't form enough because of the wounds and traumas to be able to block out the intuition. Now, you get other gifts from that, which are equally as important in the development of a healthy ego. But one of the things that you get when you're injured young, and a lot of people are in my workshops, I always say, raise your hand if you were a victim of, and I give a whole list, within the first 5 years of your life. And it is amazing how truly undefended children are. And how much trauma people actually do incur very early on. And they self-select. All of those people are usually in my groups because they've been injured. They've gotten this amazing gift of being able to experience spirit because of the injury, because they weren't able to develop normally, but they don't know how to apply it because their egos haven't been healed, because the injury does that as well. So really, being intuitive does often come from trauma, and in adulthood, when you have a trauma, because you're literally ripped open, that spirit comes through. But we want to learn to use intuition and be able to build healthy selves and lives at the same time, and that's the real challenge.
Yeah. So we're going to continue with that thought after our final break here on Inspired Living. Stay with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We have a special guest, Laura Day, talking all about intuitiveness, healing, and the power of spirit. We'll be right back.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she's feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, Inspired listeners, to Inspired Listening with Mark and Kim. We are with Laura Day today. We've been talking about practical intuition and healing work that we can all participate in and that we all have the ability to do. And before we went to break, Laura, you were talking a little bit about how trauma can affect us early in our lives and how to build intuition from some of those experiences. One of the things I would love to make sure that we cover too, because we had a question come in from one of our listeners, is they would like to know what are some practical tools that you can give to our audience today on how to build their own intuition.
Well, my fourth book, I've written 6. My fourth book is called The Circle: How the Power of a Single Wish Can Change Your Life, and that really is the best process. It's the process I personally use. To use your intuition, your healing, your intellect, to use all of it to create something, the goals you want in your life. But one of the very first thing you do in the circle is you know your goal. I mean, most of us are getting answers all the time. We just don't know what questions we're asking. So all of this information flows through us all the time, but we have no filing system to put it in. So know your questions, and once again, the mind is a messy place. So write down your questions and review them each day, and often they'll change as you write them down from day to day. Know your goals and questions. Notice the information that comes from left field. So maybe you're looking for a job. I mean, this just happened to my son. He was looking for a certain kind of job, and out of left field, another job came in. Now, it wasn't the job he wanted, but it made him look in a new direction, and he found the perfect job that hadn't been what his original thought was. So notice the things from left field. We all what I call hyper-focus, and hyper-focus, which is really a little bit like obsession, cuts off intuition. We think we're focusing our energy on creating something, but really what we're doing is we're narrowing our field. So also have times where you're doing nothing. For me, because I have so many dishes to wash, washing dishes is the time where I get my best intuition, where I'm not thinking about anything except for, soap, scrub, put in the rack. And those, but repetitive things like walking or chanting or meditating, and it doesn't have to be something as formal as meditating. It could be while you're showering and you just allow your mind to wander. You will find you get flashes of insight if you've done the first step, which is know your goals and know your questions. The other thing that's really helpful is when you're, because I was speaking before about how you really recognize your intuition more when you're speaking to a stranger and you come up with something you couldn't possibly have known than when you're doing an intuitive work for yourself where you kind of know a lot and you have your biases. So in conversation, if something comes in from left field, say it, as long as it's not something that's going to alarm or harm the other person. If it says, gee, I think you're thinking of recovering your couch, and the person says, whoa, I haven't told anybody that. What happens when you get those kinds of confirmation is your subconscious, and 87% of our decisions, percent of our decisions are made by the subconscious before that material is conscious. So subconsciously you decide to slap someone seconds before you think, I'm going to slap that person. So it's really important to work with the subconscious. What happens when you get feedback on your accuracy is your subconscious says to itself, wow, this is a useful tool, and it's not going to be the 8th thing we offer you. It's going to be the 2nd thing we offer you after intellect. So also document your accurate hits. When you are accurate, whether it's for yourself or somebody else, have a book where you document that accuracy. I always recommend, and this is in my first book, Practical Intuition, I always recommend that you predict every day one thing that has an answer, and don't expect to be right all the time. Being right gets in the way of giving your information. So forget being right. Put that aside. and predict something like, will the Dow close above or below its opening price? Will the euro go up or down against its open against the dollar? I like doing horse races. That's in Practical Intuition. Pick a race that you do at a certain track, pick the same race every day, and get the pictures of the name of, some people tend to work well, a lot of people work well with visuals, of the name of the winner. But find something that you don't bet on, that there's not high stakes on, that you can predict every day, just to kind of train your tool. So those are some quick things. And the other thing is, don't be afraid of negative information, so-called negative information, because if someone tells me in a reading, I'm going to get into a car accident, I don't say, oh my God, I'm going to get in a car accident. I think, okay, I want to know when it is, who's driving, what's the make and model, and how do I prevent it? The whole idea of intuition is it offers you options and choices and tools. And I think that people all too often, especially when they're beginning to train their intuition, think, oh my heavens, I got a sense or a sign that this awful thing is going to happen. That's not a smart question to be looking at. If something awful is going to happen, so how do you avoid it? Look for the tools, not for the terror, Look for how you can empower yourself with your intuition. And then what happens is, as you get used to using it and you see that it's accurate and verifiable, it comes so much more easily.
And Lori, I just want to make sure, as we are approaching the end of the show already, unbelievably, it's we've been spending so much time talking, it just went by so fast. But I want to make sure that people know about the work that you do, because you go around the country and internationally, and you do a lot of healing work with people.
I've been I've been so fortunate in my life and in my career, and I tease my family, I'm in my Crohn's stage now. And what I really want to do is give this, and I hope I've done it through my books, give this ability to people to use in community. So I'm going around the country, and I do a lot of either free events, or I raise money for local charities to help people start their own circles. And what I mean by a circle, it's based on my fourth book, which is called The Circle. And what I mean by a circle is a place where people can use a process to change their lives, but also can exchange intuition and healing. And also introduce young healers, because really we're all intuitives and we're all healers. The hardest part about being an intuitive or a healer is starting a practice. And so I really want to help support the practices of healers and intuitives that their communities may not know about. I mean, we all go after that person we saw on TV, or the person who, we saw in Cosmo, if Cosmo still exists, in some big magazine.
Yeah, it does.
But really our local healers in our communities, the same way it really supports the world to buy from the small stores and not the chains. Our local healers, our local intuitives in our communities have answers that are just as good, usually at an eighth of the price of the honey that you buy in the bear for 10 times the price. It's the honey in the bear, the honey in the jar theory. You get the same honey in a jar, you get 5 times as much, you get it for a quarter of the price, and all you're not getting is the plastic bear you'd throw away anyway. So I'm really interested in doing that. And what I do is, when I have 50 people in a community, at my own expense, I come and I do a free workshop. I do a laying on of hands, usually at a local place of worship, a Unity church, a synagogue, a Unitarian church, whoever will have me, with local healers. So people really get to experience the intuitives and the healers in their own communities, as well as my work. And what I love about the circle and about doing healing circles is that I get the energy too. Everybody in that room is healed, myself included. And it's really just such a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, what we're going to do for our inspired listeners listening to the show, we're going to put all of your books and your website out on Inspired Living Radio. If you want to check out more of the work that Laura Day is doing, the beautiful work she's doing. I just had a thought, listening to you talk, and you're right, housework really does get us grounded in tune with our intuitive ability. So if you want to get in tune, go do a little bit of a housework around the house. So,
any
Laura,
repetitive action.
Yeah, and it's just, I think doing this work too, on my journey and your journey and Kim's journey, and for those of you listening, there's a sense of healing that's brought to us as well. For those of us that have the tragedies and the wounds, there is a sense of healing by being part of that community, Laura, that you're talking about, laying hands, healing, and being a part of that oneness and that one collective. Laura, I'd love to have you back on the show in 2016 if you're interested.
Very interested. I'd love to do callers if you have them.
Yeah, we are planning on having callers in 2016. That is the focus and the goal. And then I'd love to have you up to Seattle, and I know Kim would love to have you up over to LA to continue this work that we're all doing together, because it does take a village. At the end of the day, it really does take a village.
And it's so much fun in the village.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
Life should be fun. For all the hard things we do in life, we should be enjoying it too, and the only way to do that is to do that together.
Exactly. Life is short, so live for the moment. So, Laura, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you, and I thank your listeners.
Been great.
And Kim, we're coming to the end of the show. Did you have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements per se. I just want to encourage our listeners who are interested in working with Laura. I've done her workshops at Esalen. I know you've got some coming up in 2016, Laura, and it's a really fabulous place to learn, and so I encourage you to look into that.
Check her out. And next week's guest, Kim?
Next week's guest, we are going to be talking to an author by the name of Suzanne Andra Lyon about how the trees got their voices.
Interesting. Well, this has been Inspired Living with Mark and Kim here on OMTimes Radio. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Be kind, be caring, be compassionate. Namaste.